like the story of Father Jacob Elba Rado, an off-duty Border Patrol agent who was getting a haircut when his wife, a teacher, texted him, quote, "There's an active shooter. Help. I love you." He got up from the barber's chair, grabbed the barber's shotgun, and headed for the school. He entered the building, he began clearing rooms, and evacuated his own daughter and other students. Here now for a reaction, national security expert Aaron Cohen, along with former D.C. homicide detective and Fox News contributor Ted Williams. Aaron, let me say, I think all of us know, even if we're not trained, the instinct is, we've seen with some of these parents, including the mother that hopped the fence and ran into that building before it was cleared and rescued her own two children, that the law, the training is that you go in and you don't stop until you get that shooter. What is your take on what you heard today, which clearly is very concerning, I think, to a lot of people?
Well, there's been a very clear active shooter protocol in place since Columbine, which is 30 plus years ago, which essentially led the law enforcement community to developing a pretty basic but functional active shooter response plan, which basically stated that whoever shows up on the scene, Tammy, makes entry into the school. The law enforcement officers are armed. They're trained typically to do what's called forming up into a diamond formation. They can get more than 2 or 3 officers with them at a time, breach or go into the school, and then begin to head towards the direction of the fire. The sole purpose is to neutralize the threat.
Right.
You can't save somebody on an airplane sitting next to you unless you put your gas mask or your oxygen mask on first. So that's been in place for a very long time. So clearly the protocol with this, and I want to be careful not to poo-poo all of law enforcement across the country,
of course not.
Because this agency happens to be taking heat right now. I'm very pro-law enforcement. I've been training law enforcement for almost 20 years. And it just seems that for whatever reason, this particular agency didn't have the appropriate protocols in place, or didn't have the confidence to be able to pull off making entry with single 2 or 3 officers. And for whatever reason, they bottlenecked in that hallway, leads me to believe that they didn't have the stress training to be able to engage that shooter and then froze under duress. And what I mean by that is there's a massive chemical dump that happens. We go into tunnel vision, we go into auditory exclusion, so they froze up.
I understand, but that's what training is for. Training is to get you used to an environment. So whether it's adrenaline that gives you amnesia or any other stress hormones, don't drop, because whether you're taking a test or if you're training for an active shooter, you do it over and over, or in the military, over and over and over again. So when you're really doing it, it's normal. Ted,
you're capable of functioning under that stress.
Well,
I agree with you 100%. So
that's the point. And let me just say that we all here, we clearly don't need to reassert our support, even though we do every day, for law enforcement. I am known for this. Ted, you, sir, are everyone watching this network. But that support, Ted, works because we have standards, and that we, as a result, support law enforcement in the military. But it also has to be that when those standards are breached, that we are free to be able to note when there is a problem. I mean, Ted, I think that this is what we're dealing with here. We've got to address what happened here because it's serious and so many people died.
You're absolutely right, Tammy. It must be addressed. And I got to tell you, where I would like to start is from the governor, who says that he was misled, yet he's not told us who misled him, or no heads have rolled, to this Department of Safety officer who came on today and said that it was the wrong decision, where they decided to hold up and have a barricade rather than to go in. I think what is needed and necessary here is an independent investigation. You had 19 angels, and you had 2 teachers to die as the result of police officers, 19 of them, 19 law enforcement officers, sitting around twiddling their fingers instead of going in. And you had brave young girl who was on the telephone on the 911 call, and she was trying to get some help. She was saying, I need help. There are kids in here and they're alive. Please send somebody. Please send somebody. And nothing was happening. That must be investigated, Tammy.
Yeah, you know, and even today, Aaron, at the press conference, there was an FBI representative there, a field agent, who said if we find that there is a federal nexus, we will investigate. But clearly, either it's the state or if it's the federal government, which certainly they don't have a history at this point of being really an entity we can trust either. But my goodness, something did happen with either leadership or someone else when you have this magical decision that no more children are at risk. It's now a different thing. That seems like inexplicable. Is there any way to explain that?
It is inexplicable, and I think that the really important piece of meat to hang on to here is the lack of fundamental response. Again, the responder has one goal. We've been dealing with this in Israel for years. It doesn't matter whether it's a terrorist or whether it's an active shooter. The motive doesn't matter. The action gets addressed the same way.
Right.
Which is to spot the threat, neutralize the threat, and sweep the area and look for more threats until that entire school has been swept. And even then, the property doesn't get sterilized until a special entry team goes in and methodically opens up every closet. This agency knows that there was a major, colossal failure. I think, to add to your other guest's point here, I do think there needs to be an independent investigation. I also think that the leadership of this police agency should take the brunt of the responsibility and step down. I think that would be the right thing to do at this point. And let's get some fresh blood in there. And this is a tactical situation here, which, listen, for every second wasted, another innocent person is killed. That's how long it takes to pull the trigger.
You know, Aaron, and
which means that these officers need to be flying to the threat. That's it.
Thank you.
That's your job.
You know, I think where this nation also can learn a great deal is from Israeli police, Israeli military. The Israeli approach in dealing with dynamics, I think, could be very useful. But we're going to have to be looking at this across the board. Gentlemen, thank you very much.